all of these reports, and you've been on the cutting edge reporting a lot of them, of potential splits inside the Gaddafi family, specifically among his sons.
Wolf, I don't think we're seeing those splits at the moment. The family, from what we can tell from the sources we're talking to, are still pretty unified. I think what is interesting, one of the interesting dynamics here, is very clear that this diplomatic initiative, indeed I've been told this deputy foreign minister who's traveling to Europe, to Turkey, to Greece at the moment, the story or the sort of initiative that he's peddling is the initiative that Saif al-Gaddafi should take over from his father. That we didn't know before. That's now very clear for us. But one of the things that I've learned here, it seems to be that in trying to sort of sell this narrative internally, one of the key things for Gaddafi to do is to convince the tribes in the country, those that are loyal to him, that still give him support, that they should put their trust in his son, Saif al-Gaddafi, and the family. And from other people, other sources that I talked to, there's a feeling here that the sons are not really up to the job. So part of Gaddafi handing off power at the moment is really dependent on him being able to convince some of the tribes to support the sons, because if that doesn't happen, then you get a disintegration, then you get a lot of infighting, and then you get the chaos that we've heard people very close to the regime talking about, Wolf.
If Gaddafi, the father, handed over power to his son, Saif al-Islam al-Gaddafi, and all the other sons were on board, presumably Gaddafi would go somewhere, either stay in the country or go someplace else. But do they really believe that the opposition, the rebels in Benghazi and elsewhere, would accept this, the Saif taking over as opposed to Muammar Gaddafi remaining in power? In other words, would that be a big deal to the opposition?
I think to a certain degree here, the regime here is in a cocoon of its own making. It tries to write the narrative for the journalists here. It believes what it puts out on state television itself. It believes, as we've heard Muammar Gaddafi, my people love me. They believe this. And I think one of the things that's troubling them at the moment is they're beginning to hear pushback from the opposition. They're beginning to hear that Saif al-Islam, this idea of him taking over won't fly. And they're also going to hear this now coming from the Italian foreign minister, who said now that they support, the Italian government now supports the rebels, now see them as the sort of legitimate diplomatic point in the country at the moment, and they reject the idea of Saif al-Gaddafi taking over. And that, I think, is going to cause some consternation for the regime, because they're not really coming up with another idea at the moment. Part of what Gaddafi wants to do, as I understand it from the sources we have, is see a safe transfer of power. The last thing he wants to see is that he hands over the country to somebody and then it goes downhill and goes into flames. This is his view. As I say, this is the narrative and the vision that they're locked in here. This is how they see it. And it isn't necessarily how the rest of the world sees it. But that's the point that they're coming from to negotiate on all of this on. Something else I learned interesting tonight as well is that Gaddafi really does seem to be seriously considering himself moving out of power, because he's already, from what I understand, thinking about his legacy here, how he is going to be remembered, how he is going to be enshrined into the history of Libya. Is his name going to be woven into the flag of the country, for example, or is he going to be remembered some other way? So from the sources I have, I get a clear understanding that he really is thinking that his time is up. It's just the passing on of power, in the words of the source, needs to be a respectable solution, Wolf.
It sounds to me, at least as an outsider, he's living sort of in a dream world. He obviously believes what he's dreaming over there, but it sounds totally unrealistic given what's happened over these past couple months. If, in fact, he were to hand over power to Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, his son, would he stay in Libya or would he go to a third country?
I think there's an understanding that he would go to another country. The way it's been described to me is you can get into a process of negotiations here, but don't set as a precondition to the negotiations that Gaddafi has to leave. You will get that at the end of the negotiations, is what I'm being told, because he's ready to go. And there does seem to be an acceptance that he would move on to another country. But it's if everyone comes at the negotiations as his removal a starting point, then that seems to be a non-starter from their side. As you say, Wolf, his view and the regime's view of the world at the moment is not the same view that the rest of the world has. But this is a man who still believes that he has control of 3/4 of the country, still believes he has the support of perhaps 4 to 5 million out of the 6 million people here, still believes that he has a strong enough grip on the capital of 2 million people that he can hold on for a lot longer. So in a way, they're waiting for the world to sort of come round to their reality, to realize that the rebels can't defeat them, to realize that the rebels don't represent everyone, to realize that the rebels are fractured and don't have a unified voice and can't deliver some of the stability that even the rump of his regime can offer. So that's sort of their position, Wolf. They're waiting for the rest of the world to come round and realize that he can't be pushed from power. As I say, that's their view. Obviously, the rest of the world's waiting for more defections.